MCU has created multiple household names over the years, but there are so many heroes that deserve the spotlight that unfortunately some of them get lost to history waiting for their triumphant return. Take this first family for example. You might know the Brown family thanks to Spider-Punk from the new Spider-Verse movie, but that family also exists in the 616 universe. Two notable heroes have emerged from the family of 11, Hobie as the Prowler and his older brother Abraham as the Black Tiger. Since Hobie has popped up a lot, we're focusing on the latter. Abraham Brown is a martial arts superstar that first appeared in April of 1974. He met and quickly became friends with other martial artists Lin Sun and Bob Diamond. The trio found a set of jade tiger amulets and decided to become the Sons of the Tigers. The trio later dispersed after a series of personal arguments and they lost their amulets, but before breaking up, they teamed up with other heroes like Spider-Man and the Human Torch. To take some time off, Abe was hopping on a plane to Algeria, but his suitcase had been switched, the new one containing the Black Tiger costume. Unfortunately for Abe, two other not-so-nice guys were also looking for this costume and hijacked his plane. But Abe is a superhero, so he survived. He managed to chase and capture one of the men, but they were then captured by a local tribe and forced to duel Black Panther style to see who will become the Black Tiger. We know how this ends. Brown officially takes up the Black Tiger mantle, and his last known activities took place in 2017 as a member of the Penance Corps. Sometimes real life and the characters on the page are one and the same, and this is especially true in the case of the second Human Fly. The first was a villain, but this ain't about him. Our Human Fly superhero was a regular young man who got into a bad car accident. His injuries were very serious, which led to him receiving a new skeleton made of steel. He was told that he will be paralyzed for the remainder of his life, but the Human Fly resolved that he would learn to move again. He began training his body and worked for years until he was even stronger than he was before the accident. He used his newfound strength and skills for good and became the Human Fly. This didn't come without confusion. The original Human Fly still existed. Spider-Man had a run-in with the hero at one point, thinking he was the evil guy. The Human Fly would also sometimes do daredevil stunts to raise money for charities for children with disabilities. We never actually learn his name in the comics, but that's okay because we know his name in real life. The Human Fly hero is based on the very real stuntman Rick Rahat. The tagline for the comic book was, "The wildest superhero ever," because he's real. And the book itself featured photos of Rick in the Human Fly suit. One story that many Marvel fans hope will disappear is that of US-1, or the story of Ulysses Solomon Archer. The series is only 12 issues long and yet packed in a fight with a German Zeppelin captain, motorcycle gang, and aliens. The main problem people have had with this comic is the plot seems so unbelievable, a hard feat to accomplish when it comes to superheroes. But I guess an intergalactic trucker would do the trick. The reason for the seemingly odd plot choices is because the series was based on a line of toys, the Tyco toy slot car racing line. That is why the main character, Ulysses, wants to be a trucker so badly and even has a custom-built semi-truck, missiles, and other fun gadgets. The gadgets aren't just in his truck, they are also in his head. In the first issue, Ulysses and his brother are driving down the highway but are run off the road by the main villain of the story, the Highwayman. The brother doesn't make it and Ulysses is barely holding on. To save his life, he gets a very durable metal skull replacement. The new skull is able to pick up on radio transmissions, which comes in pretty handy. After this limited run was over in 1984, he makes a few appearances in the sensational She-Hulk, Annihilators, and Deadpool team-up. The last time he was seen on panel was in New Avengers Volume 2, number 7. He's featured in a lineup of potential nannies to Jessica Jones and Luke Cage's daughter. He doesn't get the job, unfortunately. This next bunch went from one parody to another. The powerhouse Pachyderms were originally planned to be a parody of other crime-fighting animal group, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The whole thing is a pretty funny concept. Instead of crime-fighting turtles, it's crime-fighting elephants. Their name? The Adult Thermonuclear Samurai Elephant. Iconic. However, not everything went to plan and there were some significant delays, and so Marvel was forced to change the name and said that they were now a parody of the X-Men. Either way, the team of 4 first appeared in Power Pachyderms issue 1 in 1989, and that's it. That's all we ever get. The issue itself is a gem. We learn that the elephants were supercharged when their train car bound for the zoo was unhooked from the train by a monkey, and they happened to jump track to one that leads to a nuclear test zone. Then there's a big explosion, and that exposes the elephants to radiation, turning them into super elephants. They rejoin the circus briefly before heading off on their own, only to come back together to fight Clarinetto, former head of the Brotherhood of Musicians. The super elephants fight and defeat Clarinetto and his band of celebrity ninja impersonators. If it sounds ridiculous, that's because it is. The last panel even tells you to not take it seriously, and the elephants haven't been seen since 1989. The Sleeze Brothers also kicked off in 1989. What was in the air that year? This 6-issue limited series was specifically designed for adults. John Carnell is responsible for creating this wacky comic. The entire thing is a spin-off from a one-off comic strip created for Doctor Who called Follow That TARDIS. This story follows a pair of brothers who grew up as orphans, but not on the Earth we know. Their Earth is far in the future and looks kind of like if you find steampunk and 80s neon aesthetics and use that to build a city. It's full of pollution and crimes and monsters and aliens and very corrupt and generally unwelcoming. So that's the vibe, and the job the brothers have picked to survive this harsh landscape is private investigator. They are good at what they do, getting the right results, even if they don't always use the most morally sound methods. The comic itself wasn't received well, and the first issue didn't sell well. The brothers were seen in the totally stonking, surprisingly educational, and utterly mind-boggling comic relief comic, and then the backup story in Image Comics' Elephant Men issue 16. And then they haven't been seen since. Today, there are no nerds and jocks. Set aside your differences because Stan Lee said so. In 2011, Marvel partnered with the NHL of all things to create superheroes for every team. The project was called the Guardian 30 Project, and for the most part, a team's hero would be an elevated version of their mascot. The Panthers is a panther, you get it. All 30 heroes were featured in the 2011 All-Stars game, which for anyone who doesn't know, like me until last year, the All-Stars game brings together all the best players from all the hockey teams across the league. 2011's special presentation even involved a cameo from Stan Lee and a laser show. These things weren't meant to just be pictures. A CGI animated short was created to debut the hockey heroes, and there were even future plans for comics, movies, TV series. They planned for these to tap into the younger audience of hockey fans and become wildly successful, but if that were the case, they wouldn't be on this list. They flopped hard. The main issues with the supers was that many of them were just existing character designs with one or two differences, and the storyline for the characters wasn't very compelling. They were drawings come to life instead of actual heroes in their own universe. Safe to say these heroes will probably be staying out of the game and in the penalty box for the future. Project Guardians wasn't the first time Stan Lee dipped into a new audience. In the year 2000, the Backstreet Project hit the shelves and the merch booth at the Backstreet Boys concerts. Backstreet Boy Nick Carter, a longtime comic fan, and Stan Lee, longtime comic creator, combined forces to create the band's superhero team. Carter came up with the idea and originally hoped it would become a 6-part comic series. However, when he sat down with Lee, the pair just agreed on a single issue and a web series. The comic featured the band getting their powers for the first time, going from superstars to superheroes. The web series planned to have 22 episodes, but only 7 were aired, and none of the actual Backstreet Boys took part in it, which is disappointing. Even Burger King got in on the project, creating a line of action figures to go with their kids' meals. I want one. With the rise in Y2K trends over the years, I think it's time for the band and the book to make a comeback. Once again, we are back with another Stan Lee venture. His animated web series ended up becoming wildly successful, being picked up by Fox for TV distribution. It was called The Seventh Portal. The story centered around Peter Littlecloud, his friends, and an interactive video game. The game promises the opportunity to actually fight monsters like a superhero. It claims to use holographic projections for the gameplay. In the game, there are 7 dimensions, 6 are currently conquered by an evil villain, whereas the last one, our dimension, is safe. You choose a hero to play as to make sure the evil doesn't make its way through the portal. The game turns out too real for comfort. The way you really fight the monsters is by being transported into the screen in the parallel universe of Darkmoor. Peter and friends end up defeating the evil and restoring the universe to what it was before. The only change is that the crew gets to keep their superpowers so they can protect the Earth if needed. The series was so popular it was set to head to the silver screen, but nothing has been heard about that for about 2 decades, and it seems Peter Littlecloud will stay tucked away until it's actually picked up again. The Torpedo has had quite a few people behind the mask, but only one was a hero. Brock Peters witnessed a fight between the second Torpedo and Daredevil. Torpedo 2 went down and Peters tried to save him. Unfortunately, he didn't make it, but was able to get Peters to promise to take up the Torpedo mantle before passing. The new Brock Peters Torpedo was the first to use the mantle for good, frequently teaming up with Daredevil. He retired from the suit once, but real life now paled in comparison to superhero adventures, and he took it back up again to help fight Chameleon. He was around for about 9 years before a battle with the Dire Wraths took him out, so technically he disappeared because he died, which is something that rarely sticks with Marvel, but I think this time it might. At first glance, the hero Sleepwalker looks like a villain, which causes way more problems than you would expect. The MCU judges books by their cover. In reality, Sleepwalker is not just his name, but also his job. The Mindscape is a dimension that is an all sentient things, even you and me, and it has beings in it whose sole purpose is to be evil and make people go insane by invading their mind. The Sleepwalkers prevent this from happening and protect the minds of innocents. One of these Sleepwalker guardians was tricked by a longtime enemy into entering the mind of Rick Sheridan. The villain and hero fought in the dream, but when the villain escaped, our hero found that they couldn't, or at least that was the case for a little while. Pretty soon, it evolved into just remaining on Earth. Eventually, Rick learned of his Sleepwalker buddy, and the two became co-inhabitors of Rick's mind. The Sleepwalker used his time on Earth to fight the evil entities from the mindscape that materialized. The last time we saw Sleepwalker was in 2018 in Infinity War's Sleepwalker number 4, where he was very busy destroying nightmares and saving worlds. I hope we see him return. He seems neat. Thank you so much for not disappearing and watching till the end. As always, let us know your thoughts by making your mark on the comments section down below. This was Juliana, and I'll see you later.